I will tell you about a few peculiar things that happened to me about a year ago. Me and my friend Mariah decided to move in together, as both of our earlier leases were just about to expire and we spent pretty much every waking hour together either way. We went house hunting and finally found an apartment that we both really saw some potential for. It was rather cheap and absolutely massive. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, living room, and a big balcony. I had spent the last few months living in a tiny studio without a kitchen, and it was really a relief to find this place, especially considering that I had a kitten that grew bigger and bigger each day. The building itself was pretty worn out, built in a depressive old Chinese style with low, heavy roof and dirty grey, once white walls and generally loads of concrete. Especially the elevators were very unpredictable and made me feel claustrophobic. The lights would go out, it would take you to random floors, and once even got stuck between floors with us trapped in it. The apartment itself was newly renovated and felt like it just needed a bit of light and care to become homey and welcoming. It would be our oasis in the middle of busy Bangkok. The week we moved in was pretty rough on us. We had so much stuff and no time to move it all. Work had to stay late every night and force us into moving little by little long after midnight. Because of this, the relief was even greater when we finally had cleaned and prepared the place perfectly. I took a deep breath and thought, wow, finally all done. At this very same second, I heard a loud banging noise coming from my room. We ran in and saw my brand new clothing rack all bent and broken, and clothes were covering the entire floor, as if someone in rage had bent it and tossed away all my clothes. Mariah had the same exact model that we bought at the same time, and this one never broke. But the most unsettling thing was that feeling of it not being just a normal fall. I was finally just finished cleaning and the clothes pretty much had exploded all over the big room. After this, we both stayed together in Mariah's room, even though we had all this extra space. I wasn't scared or anything, but it just naturally turned out that way, as we would always watch movies there before bed. It was the easiest room to cool down, and we both wanted to sleep with the kitten. Although there was something in the atmosphere in the apartment that wasn't quite right. It felt impossible to keep the place bright, no matter how much sun you let in the windows or how many lamps were lit. The kitten seemed scared sometimes and other times acted like she was hiding or running away from something. She even ignored her litter box once in a while. This was not a normal behavior for her, before nor after living there. A few times we had visitors, and this seemed to encourage a spike in odd happenings. Visitors would stay in my room, in which I actually never spent a single night, and this really seemed to trigger something. However, there was this one event that was just standing out. It was impossible to ignore or brush off as nothing. We were just about to sleep. In the big bed, we were laying about 2 inches apart, with our backs facing each other. Stretched out between us was a thin blanket. Suddenly, we clearly feel and hear something stumbling up the bed, starting from the bottom and walking angrily all the way up to our heads. The blanket got pushed down between us as the mattress itself was clearly sinking from each step. There was no one else in the room, not even the kitten, as we had closed the bedroom door not to disturb visiting parents. We were frightened, but also amazed that something like that actually just happened. We ended up leaving the apartment after staying there for only about 3 months, because of other reasons not related to our haunting, but I still look up at it sometimes when I pass it by on my way home from work late at night. I wonder if anyone will ever feel welcomed in that room. Last week, my mother underwent surgery at Bangkok's famous Bamrongrat hospital, after which the doctors recommended she stay in the hospital for a few days while recovering. She was moved into room 905 on the 9th floor of the old building. In my daily visits to her at the hospital, I always got an uneasy feeling being in the room and usually couldn't stay there too long. At first I thought maybe it was because I don't generally like being in hospitals, but anyways, my mother abruptly decided that she wanted to come back home a day earlier than she was supposed to. First I didn't make much of it, but once she got home she told me something strange. She said for the past few nights she had seen a woman wearing a white gown and a headscarf standing at the corner of the room calling out to her. The first night she saw her, she thought she might be hallucinating from the medication, but then when the same thing happened the second night, she was pretty sure something was not right in that room. Our best guess is someone had passed away in that room and had not moved on yet. We hope and pray that her soul can rest in peace. It would be interesting to hear if someone had a similar experience at Bamrongrat Hospital or any other hospitals in Bangkok. I personally do believe in the afterlife and believe that people who are lost before their time sometimes do not pass over right away. In this case, I'm pretty sure both my mom and my dad, who had been staying with her, had witnessed this phenomenon but managed to deal with it in a proper way. They both said a prayer in the room before they left and prayed if there was in fact any spirits there, it would be at peace and find its way to the next life. In September 2005, I was studying at Derby University for a BA degree in tourism. As part of my dissertation, I was looking into the effects of the tsunami and the socio-economic impact on the area of Krabi in Thailand. I had a close relationship with a Thai family who previously lived in the UK, and it was arranged for me to go stay with them. John, the father of the family, was English, and Dam was the mother of the family. She was Thai. They had 2 children, a girl and a boy. Let's just call them Cassie and Freddie. Cassie would have been around 5 at the time, and Freddie was about 2.5. On the arrival to Thailand, I was greeted at the airport by the whole family, and Cassie presented me with a small garland of flowers which I thought was really sweet. I was absolutely exhausted from traveling and do not remember the journey to the home very well. I remember it was about 4 p.m. in the afternoon when I arrived at their bungalow, and I had to excuse myself to go to bed. During the night I woke up. I do not know what time this was, but I was feeling very uneasy, almost like I was being watched. The net curtains in the room were swaying frantically, and I remember a real feeling of sadness. Usually this would stop me from sleeping, but I was so sleepy I just drifted back to sleep. The next morning I woke up feeling much better after some rest and was able to get a proper catch up with my friend who I had not seen for almost 3 years. Dam asked me how I had slept, and I announced I had slept very well, not wanting to let her know how uneasy the feeling was in the room. I thought nothing of this and got showered and ready to spend the day with Dam while John stayed home and looked after the children. In my room I had a lot of sweets and presents for the children which were in my bed. I was planning to give it to them later that day. Around 3:30 p.m. I arrived back at the bungalow with Dam, and John was sitting outside on the porch. He had a very worried expression on his face and asked to speak with myself and Dam alone. He said that he had caught the children messing around in my room, trying to eat the sweets. So he had locked the door to only later notice that they were still hovering around my door trying to unlock it and talking to something in the room. Cassie informed me that someone was in there and she needed to go check and see if they were okay. John, thinking this was just a ploy to get the sweets, told them to go play somewhere else and behave. About an hour before we came home, he said he was sitting on the porch when he heard a low voice say, "Cassie, come here." This came from the room where I was staying. Cassie came outside and asked her dad who had called her, which had alarmed John as he had also heard it. John was not the kind of man to be shaken up by things like this. However, there was no way anyone could have been behind the bungalow at the time or gotten into the room without John seeing, as the passageway behind is blocked up and the room was locked. The other strange thing about it was that the voice was speaking in English, and the bungalow they were renting was in a residential area, predominantly Thai. He said the voice he had heard radiated through the house and the children thought it came from my room, but when we went in and spoke, even loudly, nothing could be heard from the front porch. Dam, being a Buddhist and also a believer in ghosts, called to arrange for local monks to come and bless the house, believing that something was very wrong indeed. We all packed our bags and went to stay in a nearby hotel for the night. John and Dam contacted the people who they were renting the bungalow of that evening to relay events, only to find out that it had previously been owned by an English family with 2 daughters, one of which had passed away in the tsunami, and the parents had returned to England without managing to find the body. Dam and John also admitted to me that both Cassie and Freddie would not settle in that room, which is why they were sleeping in a small room together instead of separate rooms. The next day the monks came to bless the house and left a string of orange rope around for protection, and also brought a spirit house, which is what many Buddhists have in their home to look after the spirits. I did not actually stay in the bungalow again after that night, as I felt very uneasy. I chose to stay at a hotel as it was very reasonably priced. Dam and John have since moved back to the UK and the children are much older. We never spoke about what happened again. Done.